Hi, it's Dave, and I want to talk today about the harmonic side of what's going on in the Polyrhythmic music album. I really regret giving it such a long name. I have to shorten it now. So I'm going to see here if hopefully you can see the keyboard on here. I use Noire, by the way, from Native Instruments. I find it just a really, really good all-round piano to use. I used it on the album, but it was usually edited, and I'll show you how I was doing that. But first of all, there's kind of a way that I've ended up thinking about harmony that's a little bit strange. I hope this will make sense to you, but throughout the entire album, everything is really based on the same, what I call harmonic environment. And I don't really use keys or scales, although you could look at this in terms of keys and scales. But I've sort of ended up finding that this way of thinking works better for me. So the idea here is that you pick a bunch of notes that you like, which in this case was kind of a C minor and a A flat major, and sort of the notes in between a few, so it's kind of like a C minor or A flat major. It's kind of modal, it's kind of in between, but it's basically the notes in C minor and A flat major, which I've always liked because you can just go between them. You can play them at the same time, and they sound nice. Basically, I take those notes and can just use all of them freely. So, you know, I can take any note and put that as the bass note. So I'll take the F, and then I'm still playing the C minor over the top, or E flat, or A flat, or F minor, or B flat. And those are all kind of within this zone, but I don't have a key center. It's not based around C or around A flat. It's ambiguous. And that's the only way really that it deviates from saying it's in A flat or it's in C minor or it's on a C minor scale or it's a particular mode of C minor or A flat or whatever. Because I'm not thinking in those terms at all. I'm thinking of those notes. Anything can be the root. Anything can be played over that. I just combine them however I like, and I just think of that as like a cloud that I can just reach into and just pick any bit of it that I like. But I find that because there's certain notes that aren't going to appear on the album, probably like C sharp and F sharp, and probably a B natural, those probably they might have squeaked in somewhere, but they probably don't appear anywhere on the album. So just by doing that, just by limiting your source material and focusing only on these particular relationships that you picked, and I've picked them because I just like the sound, and that's it. It kind of gives the whole thing a flavor. If I sort of play a note and start improvising over it using that scale and that set of notes, but it's not a scale because I'm going to play a G, but I'm sort of in A flat, I guess. So I can play a. And there's no real root note there. There's no tonal center. There's no real kind of tonal activity in terms of a normal key system going on at all. So it's just sort of taking sounds that I like and combining them at random. Now, if I record, God, I've never done this live. I don't think I've ever done this on video before, but I'm going to just play some random things. Here we go. Something like that. It doesn't really matter. That was just me faffing around in that key. I'm just going to get rid of that. Now, I'm going to quantize it probably to eighth notes so it will sound a bit neater and tidier, but I won't completely quantize it. I'll do it to about 80% so there's still a little bit of life left in it. Play it back. Now it's just random noodling. It's nothing more than that. What I am going to do though, and this is a bit technical, but I'm actually going to put on the hold pedal so that it's like pressing the sustain pedal down on the piano. So now all the notes will ring out. Now in Noire, you do get this lovely resonance that that crops up from doing that. So now you should hear a more resonant sound and the notes will sustain. Now, the kind of thing that I was doing... Ooh, no, don't want to do that. That doesn't matter, actually. I can do that. I'm just going to cut that off at the end. Now, what I was doing on this album to create something that was more glitchy, I would render the track. So now we've got the rendered version here. And I did this little combination of actions, which you can do in Reaper. You've got your action list up here. What I can do is I've got Control Q here. And what this does is it cuts up the track by whatever the grid is set to. So I want to set that to maybe eighth notes a bit quicker. So if I zoom in here, you'll see it's edited, it's divided into eighth notes at the moment. That's where the metronome is counting, what it's dividing the bar up into eighth notes. So I've got this action that in one keystroke divides it into eighth notes and then rearranges those randomly. So I'll press Control Q and you'll see a bunch of things appear. And now this is chopped up and randomly rearranged. Now that can sound really good, or it can sound a bit repetitive because you've got the regular edits going on at every eighth note. So if I get rid of that, I can just divide this up into, say, random sections like this. I'll just chop it up randomly. I will only do that split editing on certain sections. And then I will go in and change the grid to maybe 16th notes, because then we'll start getting a bit more glitchy, and I can start doing random ones in here where it gets edited up into 16th notes instead. Just do something like this. This is just totally random. So if I was working properly on the album, I would be repeatedly listening to this and finding the bits that sounded really nice and work together, and I would try them in different combinations. Here I'm just going to edit and go random. So here we go. This is what we've got now. Now, one thing that I also did on the album was randomly reverse sections. Now, when I was working on the album, I'd be listening through and imagining. I would listen through and then reimagine listening to the music and hearing which bits would sound really cool if they got reversed or chopped up more. But here I will just do random ones. I think I can probably automate some of that, but so you see we start getting really glitchy now. And it starts to sound kind of nice. You get this kind of very ambient feel to it. Now, first, before I go on to the next step, I just want to say as well that I am a big fan of doing this stuff manually. There's kind of glitchy plugins that you can get. My problem with those is whoever's doing it you'll end up with the same kind of glitches as anyone else who's got the plugin. There's obviously flexibility there and a certain randomness, but I prefer to do at least some of the glitchiness by hand, because the only way that someone else can recreate that is by doing a load of work. And most people want a shortcut and a plugin that will do it for them. So another thing that I will do here is also, I will zoom in, I will also take off the snapping here. And with something like this, I will go in and I will get rid of the auto fades, apply that. So when I chop this up, the auto fades should go away. And now I could chop this into a very small piece like that. And I'm going to zoom in even more and chop this really tiny and then duplicate it like this. Probably just starting to increase the length so it varies a little bit. Just super glitchy micro edit. Sounds kind of harsh, but things what we're going to do again is I'm going to select all of this, I'm going to glue it together, and then we've got it all in one track again. And what I can do is do the split into the grid, edit into the grid, and the shortcut that I've done that cuts it into pieces and rearranges them randomly, I can do it again. Now, see, there's a bit here that I like. That section right there, that sounds great to me. I'm going to edit that back into, I'm going to glue it together back into one piece, and now we've got this. I'm going to loop it. I think it sounds really great. And what I'm going to do is add some reverb to that, which will now kind of smooth over the glitchiness of it. So that is an example of how I'm creating some of the piano tracks in there. I would probably also go in and edit this again to break up the loop. Like I could do a little edit at the end of here and reverse that one. And then we would get sort of, and it just keeps some variation going. I would probably loop it, but then do more edits in there. I also used this plug-in from Arturias Motions. Now this is a glitching kind of plugin, which I find quite tricky to use. It's quite complicated. There's a whole lot of different things working on cycles that go at different speeds. This is the preset that loads up, which I tend to use and just adjust a bit and take things out, but I'm actually going to put the reverb after it. I prefer that sound like that, because I had the reverb first, and so this was chopping and reversing stuff, the reverb, and I want the reverb to smooth over that a little bit so it sounds a bit more chilled, because otherwise we've already got the glitchiness in there. I think the reverb smooths it over and makes it more relaxing to listen to than full-on glitchiness. Okay, so what I want to do here is take down the wet level of that as well, so it's not so intense. I'm going to take out some of the, how do we do it? There we go. Take out some of the glitches here. I'm also going to put that to 15 beats, because that's a weird number of 16th note beats to have, so it's not going to repeat in time with the piano loop. It's going to go out of sync with the piano loop. I might also turn off the noise. The filter is going really fast, so I'm probably gonna slow that down, see what that does. Volume is going really fast, I might slow that down as well, something like that. Let's see how that sounds now. So I want to get that down to about 50%, and then this is where I start doing things that are really stupid. I'm going to add motions again and pick another one, glitches, something like that. Actually, I think we could gated rhythm maybe. Euclidean accents. I'm going to take this down way below 50%. And where is it? The repeat FX. I'm going to put that like at 13. So now you've got the 13 beat cycle and the 15 beat cycle that are running over the 16 beat loop. So that will repeat and go out of sync and eventually come back into time next Wednesday. Okay, it's going to be ages. So let's see how this sounds. Sometimes it might not sound good. Let's just see. I'd love for it to go there. So I'm going to cut this bit out, do that. Can't really hear it. I might repeat this one. Those bits are too quiet. I'm going to... Oh God, I'm starting to drag the wrong things. I can get rid of it. Here we go. There we go. That's what I wanted. So we can start from the beginning now. Back to the beginning. Just to add some accents to it. So that would be one layer. Now should we get onto some synths? So I have got a specific way that I like to do the synths. I like to use... What shall I use? I'll do Pigments. Arturias Pigments is a really nice synth. And it is good for doing this actually. So what I want to do is just have a simple, this will be good. I just want to, it'll be a short, like a sort of sine wave type sound. I want really long release on it. So now, and yeah, it's poly. So I like to use really simple sine waves to start with. But what I'm going to do is go into micro tuning here. I like Werkmeister because it's really close to a standard tuning, but it's not quite standard tuning. And then I like to duplicate that. Sometimes I will pick a different tuning, but I will go back to just the default here because some of these ones are nuts. So I've got one that's on a regular tuning, one that's on a alternative tuning. And so some notes will be the same. You can hear that that's clashing with the other note. So there's clashing going on there, and then what I do is I just put them to stereo, one on either side. And there's just an interesting stereo effect that you get from that, and it sounds slightly out of tune, just slightly. Which, okay, let me show you. If I just go onto one of these tracks, I'll put this back in the middle, and I'll do what I did with the piano. I've just soloed this, so all we hear is this. I'm just going to I'm going to record a loop, and then we're going to mess with it with the two synths and see how it sounds with the piano. So let's just leave it at that. Now we will drag, oh actually I should have quantized that first. I'm going to quantize it to eighth notes again, just at 80%, so it's a bit neater, but not totally neat. I'm going to quantize the other one, but at a different level of quantizing so that they don't match up exactly. It just makes them sound a bit more alive. Now, if I play just these two synths together, you get the stereo thing going on. Now, because of the two different tunings, some of the notes will be exactly the same and some of them will be different. So it's not like you've detuned the synth. Only some of the notes will be detuned. And I think that's what gives the really spatial feel, because sometimes you get the notes identical, sometimes you get them clashing, and the wavering effect. Now, what I also do here is I'll trim this loop a little bit, and I'll trim this one to an eighth note longer and then loop it. This is going to be a bit long. I'm going to zoom out here, and you'll see that these start to go out of time now. You'll hear this on the album everywhere. So that was an eighth note apart. Now it will be a half note, quarter note apart. You hear they're going out of phase. It's also giving the stereo effect. So the point of doing this, the reason that I've ended up doing stuff like this is because the two different tunings add a layer of character. The stereo effect adds a layer of character. The phasing effect adds a layer of character. And then you've got the notes and the rhythms that you've played that are another level of character. Then we combine it with the piano that was there before. So because we've picked all these notes from out of the cloud that I was talking about, the harmonic environment where everything is being picked from the same smaller number of notes than the chromatic scale, these all work together, and it doesn't matter where I start, where I finish, what notes I go to, they're all existing in this harmonic environment that works. It just always works, and it always sounds like this. This is the sound of the album. This particular harmonic environment is the sound of this album. All the tracks sound like it. You start putting these particular elements together, it sounds like that. It adds identity and character, which is what's most important to me, is giving the music character and layers and layers and layers of character. Now, what I would also do for the bass here, what would I do for the bass? Yes, this is going to be interesting. Okay, so I would add in a track, and this is going to get so my voice is coming in through the microphone. I hope that doesn't cause a problem there. So the Korg MS-20, again from Arturia. I like Arturia. Oh, this might blow us away. Let's see. Yeah, it's pretty loud. Love it. Right. So I'm going to put the sustain time up. I'm going to bring the peak down a bit here. Maybe a bit more. Now, I find this thing really unruly and hard to manage. So what I do is I put in a filter to take out the highs, because that's what I want to do, but the filters there are already down low. If you saw my other video, you'll know that I like to get rid of a lot of high frequencies because things can get really glassy quickly. And we're not going to leave it at this. Oh, this is also going to be mono legato for this. And some glide time as well. Now I love this sound, but it's not nasty enough. So I like to use, let's get this up. Oh, it's Arturia again. It is, what's it called? Coldfire. Parallel or serial, is it parallel or serial? You can do it either way. It's basically nasty distortion, really nasty distortion. We'll do something like bass fizzler, like really nasty. So I'm going to go and drag that back before the EQ so it'll take off some of the highs. That sounds good. It's got that fizzy, gritty nastiness that I like. And then I'm going to, well, I will play in a bass line. Do you know what we need on there? We need some reverb. Oh, this is turning into an Arturia advert now because I really like Intensity from Arturia as a reverb. It's very spacious. I'm going to turn up the wet there. Can I go down? Yeah, I can go down. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to increase the delay time a bit as well. This is super sensitive, by the way. It will go nuts if you turn it up any more than that. So, right, let's just play something random and cool sounding. Again, this is using the harmonic environment kind of thing. Just random stuff. That was sort of using some quicker notes, so I'll quantize this 16th notes, but because this is in the bass, I want this to be really on the beat, so I'm gonna whack this up to 100%. I wanted the synths that are on top of it to have some flexibility, so I didn't want to quantize them really harshly, didn't want them to be robotic, but the bass, I do want it to be robotic, and in fact, 8th notes didn't. Actually, yeah, I'm going to do it to 8th notes. No, I'm not going to do it to 8th notes. Changed my mind. Right, and I'm going to drag this back to the start. So it starts right at the beginning. Oh, it's so crazy, that sound right. Let's see how that goes when we put it all together. Sounds a bit formless at the moment, and that's okay, because the idea here is that I put an idea down, listen for the bits that work, find the little moments where you go, oh yeah, the timing of that is just really good, and then you start to build that up as a theme. You go, this little section works really well, I can reuse that, or I can put it onto different notes and change, where it's played in the bar or whatever. So this is just kind of a sketch, and what I would do is I would listen through to this and see what's working. I would also actually probably extend these loops on to see when these synths go out of sync. I would move this bass line over here and hear how it sounds when the synths are going out of sync. just to reiterate this, that this whole harmonic environment thing, this is where this comes into play, because I don't have to worry about, there's no chords, there's no bass note. It's all just existing in this environment where any note that you play is going to work. They're all going to work together. So it creates this just sort of floating feeling, and it's very static because there's no chord sequence. It never doesn't build or doesn't go, there's no ups and downs harmonically. It's just static, which is a very specific feeling that can lead to a sort of timeless, floaty feeling. There's one thing that I like to do with these legato squelchy basses is I like to go in and add in little high notes as 16th notes. So things like this. I don't know if you could hear that. I'll play it just with the bass. Even go higher. We'll do. There we go. I want to put in a little one that just knocks it out. Knocks out those long notes and divides them up a bit. It's just kind of random, but what you do is, or what I do is, listen to how that works with the other stuff that's going on, and then just add it, edit, and move around where it sounds best. There's another aspect to this. Oh, there's a load of other aspects to this. So one of the things that I've talked about a little bit here is how I build up layers of character. And that's something that I like to do as well. So if I do another instance of Pigments here, put this one back in the middle, and I'm going to edit this so that there's just this one. Just that one, and all the other bits go. I'll get rid of them. So it's just that one at the beginning of the bar, and I'll make that really a bit longer so that it doesn't happen all the time. Okay, so this one is like this. Now what I'm going to do is, there are effects in here, and the effects are really good, but I like to just add own reverb in. Raum adds a spacey, roomy feel, hence the name. I'm going to add a really long delay time on it, maybe 7 seconds or something, so it really long. And then after the delay, add in Decapitator, saturation plugin from Soundtoys. Add a bit of sharpness to it. There's different settings here. Do you know what I might do? Actually, I'll bring down the wet and increase it. I prefer that. I'm going to get rid of that brightness. Actually, do you know what? I'm not sure that I liked adding the saturation to the reverb. I'm going to try it before. That sounds better to me. Okay. So this is just adding some kind of punctuation to the mix, because it's there's a lot going on, and this just adds accent points where it grabs the listener's ear for a second. In fact, well, actually, do you know what? this might get loud. Sorry about that. I'm going to take it up an octave so that it stands out a lot more. And it just adds these accent points in the mix. Let's come down. It's too loud. See how that just floats above everything else? It's completely stands out. So there's also another factor that we haven't really taken into account here, which I covered in the what was it? It's down here. It was the kick. There's another factor that adds character and texture to the mix as a whole. There it is. Right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the piano, those two big synths, into a folder. I'm going to leave, actually no, I'm going to put the accenting high synth into there, but I'm not going to put the bass in there. I don't want the bass to be affected. I'm going to shorten that loop as well if I can. Is it going to drag everything? No. So I'm going to just shorten that so there's not a big gap. This is the kick drum sample, which I am just going to play in here on C2. I'm not going to do a fancy rhythm in here. I'm just going to do 4. Oh, see, actually, that. Okay. Boop. I kind of like that. Okay, so that. Typically for me, that's now ended up being a 5-beat pattern, which I'll just play on its own. I already like it. So that's just a little pattern that I've got going on there. Now what I'm going to do is, as mentioned in the other video, is put the Reaper's compressor on there and sidechain. Oh, no, I don't want to do that yet. Sidechain the kick to all those synths and the piano, so it will now block those out when the kick plays a little bit, and it will create a volume change. Still a bit loud, that one. And so that is already coming together a little bit. And then on the mix as a whole, I'm going to put on Ozone from Izotope. This will ramp up the volume of it and also do some basic mixing, which I'll tweak later, but it is good. I like to use just the automated assistant just to sort out things like basic EQ or approximate EQ, approximate compression. It tends to make things too loud for me and I have to turn it back down. But I will put the assistant on there. The volume will jump up, so we'll need to watch out for that. It might get loud in a second, just so you know. Not too bad. So as you can hear, that's made things louder and it's changed the mix a bit. It's brought everything a bit more up front. Just going to turn the main volume down a bit so it doesn't distort on the recording here. So that is kind of like the basic groove of the track. Now, what I tend to do is I keep building until I can't put any more in without making the track worse. Once it gets to a point where anything I add is making it worse, I stop and I take that as the climax of the whole piece. So then I deconstruct backwards from there. So I would take, if I felt like this was as good as it was going to get, then I would move this to the end, and I would work backwards, starting, do I want it just to start with the drums? And then I might bring in this. Bring in the piano. Bring in the synths. And the bass comes in. And you start adding things, taking things out, and creating a certain amount of drama, because this, working this way tends to create, as I said, a static feel. So you want to create movement to counteract that a little bit, so it's not just boring. You still need some movement in there. On this album in particular, I added the woodwinds. I would also add probably another couple of layers of pairs of synths like that, going out of sync with each other. So there would be these ones, these two pigments that are set to left and right with just the sine wave sound. I would probably have 2 or 3 more layers of those with slightly different sounds. I would probably start to add in some pulse width modulation and some fold in there to create those types of sounds. And I would also filter those. So I would, for example, I'll slow this down, add an LFO to that, so that the sounds change over time. So slowly opening and closing filters. This, sitting there, listening to these things, I've spent countless months and months and months of my life listening to combinations of sounds like this and thinking, what's working, what's not? What do I need to change? What's okay? Does that bass work? Maybe that bass would be better with less reverb. Distortion. Maybe I should bring some of the EQ back in. Maybe the EQ should get filtered like that. You know, I could add an LFO to the filter. I don't know, that's kind of loud. I don't know if you'd be able to hear me talking there, but I just added an LFO to the filter on the EQ to see if that added some texture. It wasn't very subtle how it was. I would probably tweak that. I preferred the sound actually slightly less wet than it was. But yeah, I just go through, listen to these things over and over. And one of the factors that determines whether I use a track is whether I get bored. If I'm listening to it and I get tired of it, it's no good. I have to wait until the combination of elements builds up in such a way that you keep listening to it, and so I'm still enjoying this. I still want to listen to it. So this is hopefully, let's see, I don't know whether this is going to be like so simple and stupid that you're going to laugh at it, or so complex that you won't understand it. I have no idea. These are just sort of concepts and ideas that I've built up over being interested in doing this for a long time. I've not sort of followed anyone or followed any rules. I've just sort of figured things out on my own and tried to make them work and found things that work for me. And I hope that this is useful to you. Let me know. Please let me know in the comments, or send messages or whatever on social media, and let me know if you understand it, if it's useful, if it's interesting. If you don't understand it, if it's too weird, just let me know. Other thing that I would also say is quite often on these tracks, to avoid coming in at regular places, I tend to set the time signature of the track to like 1916 or something, so that all these, when you zoom in a bit, like you just get 16th notes all the way, and the bars don't make any sense, and so I end up just ignoring them and just putting things in where they sound right. So I just kind of close my eyes to where the bar lines are. These loops are all different lengths. They don't come together sometimes. There's no actual beat. This rhythm part is quite regular, but quite often I'll use a much longer loop that changes. So there isn't actually a pulse, there isn't a beat, there aren't bar lines, there's no time signature, everything's in a different time. And I don't really worry about any of that stuff. I just set the screen up so that it's just 16th notes, and I don't even look at where the bar lines are. It doesn't matter. I go with how it sounds and how it feels. If it feels like the right place to put it in, I put it there. Also, while I have all these loops going in and out of sync, if further on down the line, you know, down here somewhere, the way that these loops go together doesn't work and it clashes and sounds bad, I'll edit it and break my rule, and I'll just edit it and position it so it sounds good. So the guiding factor here is what sounds good, what adds character, what adds identity, what's fun to listen to, what keeps my ears interested and keeps my mind tickled. And that's about it. Everything else in terms of music and production is serving that. So yeah, I hope this has been interesting. I hope that I'm not going to go any more pink. Why am I so pink? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.